she could not be satisfied. She wanted all of the nations of the earth to have illicit relationships with her, and she abandoned the husband of her youth. In fact, notice Ezekiel 16 verse 32. If you still don't believe that this is a relationship between a husband and a wife, and Israel is the harlot because she has chosen to link up with the nations and adopt their practices, notice Ezekiel chapter 16 and verse 32. God explicitly says, "You are an adulterous wife who takes strangers instead of her husband." That couldn't be any clearer, could it? Now I want you to notice that Israel, in her fornication, she defiled God's sanctuary and she trampled on God's holy Sabbath. Notice Ezekiel chapter 23 and verses 38 and 39. Ezekiel 23 verses 38 and 39. "Moreover, they have done this to me," God says. "They have defiled my sanctuary on the same day and profaned my Sabbaths." Did they contaminate the sanctuary? Is there anything in Daniel about the sanctuary being defiled? Absolutely. "And they profaned my Sabbaths. For after they had slain their children for their idols, on the same day they came into my sanctuary to profane it. And indeed, thus they have done in the midst of my house." Do you know what else they were doing? Israel was shedding innocent blood. She was a murderous wife. Notice what it says in Ezekiel chapter 16 and verse 45. Ezekiel 16 and verse 45. "But righteous men will judge them after the manner of adulteresses, and after the manner of women who what? Who shed blood." What did Israel do? They shed blood because they are adulteresses, and blood is on their hands. Interesting. But do you know that Israel wasn't the only one who was doing this? Israel had daughters. You say, how's this? Go with me to Ezekiel chapter 16 and verse 48. She had daughters that were committing the same sins as she was. Notice Ezekiel 16 and verse 48. "As I live, says the Lord God, neither your sister Sodom nor her daughters have done as you and your daughters have done." So does Israel have daughters according to this that are practicing acts of harlotry also? Absolutely. And therefore God says to his wife, "I'm going to pour out my wrath upon you." Notice Ezekiel 23 and verses 32 to 34. In fact, God says, "I'm going to give you the cup of my wrath." Is there anything in Revelation about God giving a cup of his wrath? Yes, there is. Notice Ezekiel 23 verses 32 through 34. "Thus says the Lord God, you shall drink of your sister's cup, the deep and wide one. You shall be laughed to scorn and held in derision. It contains much. You will be filled with the cup of your sister Samaria. You shall drink and drain it. You shall break its shards and tear at your own breasts, for I have spoken, says the Lord."